I've got a few things to say. I'm sorry, I apologize, but, I've known these two people for a long time, and I've got stories, but you won't hear those. But, we know each other, and these are two people I appreciate a lot. It's our fifth River Talk. I'm John Whitty. Two celebrated Oregon poets, Paul Ann Peterson and Charles Goodrich. There is a couple announcements. There will be a chance to ask questions of the poets. So if things occur to you as they're reading, things you want elaborated on or enlarged or explained or whatever, you'll have a chance to do that.
And we may have some questions of you too.
Yeah. Also, there is food, but it is right outside, and so you have to exit this way. Don't go through this door. Wait, because there's going to be some action there. We're going to convene at that point. And there is fruit and cookies and chocolate. So the three food groups, three of the five food groups is covered. And also there is an opportunity to buy this. And so I want to alert you to this. This is a remarkable, and to understate the case, a really extraordinary anthology of river poems by Oregon poets. And I can't say enough. These are, all of the significant Oregon poets are here, minus one or two maybe I can think of. And some of their best work is here. This is for sale, for a donation to the library. Okay, and you can get it out there. So it would make a killer gift, and it would help the library. So think about that. And they'll be reading from this, by the way. So Paul Ann Peterson, recipient of the Stuart Holbrook Award, something we all covet, and not many of us have known. The author of at least seven collections, 7 and counting. Paul Ann was Oregon's 6th poet laureate, traveling more than 27,000 miles within the state, visiting all of its 36 counties to give workshops, readings, and presentations at schools, libraries, and community centers. Charles Goodrich was for 25 years a professional gardener before becoming the director of the Spring Creek Project at OSU. And you know about this project because Kathleen D. Moore was one of the co-founders of it. And you met her in April, here, standing right here, and gave an unforgettable presentation. As the director, Charles hosted at the H.J. Andrews Experimental Forest, you know where that is, right down the road, right, local. The Blue River Writers Gatherings, bringing together writers, artists, philosophers for extended residencies and mischief. He is not only an important poet and editor, but an essayist, and as if that were not enough, recently published his first novel, Weave Me a Crooked Basket. So here's the game plan for today. Paul Ann and Charles will each read for about 15 minutes their own work, river-related work. We're going to be probing that place of confluence of poetry and the river. And then each will read their favorite selections from this anthology. So that will give you a taste of a wide sampling of Oregon poets, all on the subject of the river. So, and as I said, for a modest contribution to the library, you can have a copy, or two. You can read your Please welcome Paul and Charles.
What order would you like us to go in, John? Mine first? Okay.
Do you want these?
I might, but I don't think so, because I just sort of hold this
Sure.
clipboard up and should have brought an instrument, play some music.
Yeah, I know.
River music. So, when What the River Brings first appeared in 2012, I was midway in my 4-year tenure as Oregon's Poet Laureate. And when I finished my 2 terms in 2014, Ken and I, he being officially the Oregon Poet Laureate Delivery Service, and he delivered me here today, and Ken and I, having traveled those 27,500 miles within Oregon, I had given workshops and readings and keynotes in 79 of Oregon's libraries. Lucky me. I love libraries anyway, and my traveling through Oregon and making appearances and being part of events in Oregon's libraries simply deepened that love. But I had never been in the O'Brien Memorial Blue River Library. What great good fortune to be here today. What great good fortune to first read some of my own river poems and then a few of the fine poems in that anthology. So I'll start with a river poem that's an answer to a question that's never asked. But regardless of that fact, the information in this poem is pretty good for people living in mountainous country, people who most likely never even thought about the question itself. This poem is called Why the World Isn't Flat. Water would have no place to travel. Rivers would have no beds, oceans, no ebb and go. The stream you're beside would have staggered and stymied long ago. No fine rapids chatter. Leaf boats sailing along, gone. No downhill song for former rain to croon. No need for the fingerling trout to make its swing muscle swim against the flow. And that, my friends, is why the world isn't flat. So here's another poem, a little something about the way of a river, and this river in this poem is female, a river that embodies the female principle. The title of this poem is One of Yin's Voices Speaks Up. So yin and yang. Our immediate association is female and male, but envision that symbol and remember for each of the white male shapes, there is the black dot of the female inside of it. For each of the black shapes of the female, there is the white dot of the male inside of it. It represents male and female principles. And the whole point of the yin-yang symbol is that every human being contains elements of both. We all have both. So, in this poem, and the title of the poem is supposed to kind of point you toward this. In this poem, all of us contain at least some of the man in the poem, some part of the woman in the poem. One of Yin's voices speaks up. You'd think water's female aspect would be a pond or a lake, deep, reflective, still, taking the sun and moon and clouds onto its slick, shimmered skin. Wrong. You would be dead wrong. Being a woman, I know at least that much about water. One high summer day, I stood behind a waterfall in a shallow cave scooped out of the cliff's base. Through the cascade, I looked out and down at the roiling pool where the waters falling came to its end. Din pummeled my ears, mist weighted my hair, the air smelling of skunk cabbage, willow, and mullein, tasted fecund and wet. Deafened, mute, I gazed through that plummet, joining a world on high to the one below, and I knew the man is rock, still, ever still, afraid to give up his hard-won place far above the rest. The woman sweeps right over his prominence. In sheer free fall, she heads down to earth, hell-bent to reach the sea. Here's a poem about, step out of the curtain just a little bit. A poem about a Montana river. Late in my dear father's life, I asked him if he would talk to me a little bit about his life, some things, in his history, and I recorded what he said on a tiny cassette tape recorder that I had. And he told me a lot of things about his life, but one thing he talked to me about was a story of how when he was in his late teens, working on a Montana ranch, how the horsemen, the ranch hands, went fishing, how they fished a high mountain river. This is called My Father's Voice. I can still hear it on that tape. My Father's Voice, caught on tape. Its dappled gleam makes a brief but vivid swim upstream through time. Him, long dead, telling me his story. Still a boy, he's in a line of hired hands on horseback, strung across a Montana river. Guiding their cow ponies against the flow, they drag a net behind them through snowmelt, singing for fish. They're men far from home, miles from a rod, boat, or the flat, deep water fit for its launch. High country horsemen with a yen for trout sizzled crisp by bacon grease bubbling in a cast iron pan. I'm still that girl, hungry for her father's talk, him caught on a minute of shining magnetic tape on the wide cast net of my longing. Now, has anyone else here heard of that kind of fishing? I was living in Klamath Falls. There are a lot of fisher people in Klamath Falls. I had never heard of anyone fishing that way.
Singing with horses.
On horseback with the net and singing the river. I'm sure he did not make it up, so, wow. Oh, that's in here too. All right, here's a small poem about a very different kind of river. The most accepted cosmology tells us, and I believe it, I believe this science profoundly, that we all are made from the stuff of stars. That picture on the wall, this book in my hand, everything that is made and remade on this earth is from the stuff of stars. All of us, our eyes, our limbs, our hands, your voice, your handwriting, your very signature when you write your name. This is called font. Your most ancient kin were born from the flux of frenzied stars. You come from the family sky. Your line of descent plain in whatever you write by hand. A telltale cursive with the eddied script that galaxies scrawl across the night. You make your mark. Your signature, a dark river of stars. Every time you sign your name, that's what it is. That's your dark river of stars. Ophelia, the tragic figure in Shakespeare's Hamlet, who ultimately commits suicide by drowning herself in a river, in a stream. This is called Ophelia Tells of the Stream That Inhabits Her Dreams. And she's speaking to us in this poem, Ophelia is. I see into its flux, its scant foam, those pebbles along its backbone, the sway of drowning grass where it's taken banks into its embrace. Snow's blood sister, it's a distant cousin to the clouds, the rock's cool fingered masseuse, a gleam unimpeded. It can glean every image reflected along its length. For as long as dark reveries have flown, For as long as dark reveries have flowed into me, poured out, it's coursed in my dreams. murmur, natter. Its talk susurrates just out of reach when I wake. It's the sleep stream I see and can see into, both at the same timeless time. A current of story I enter, exit, enter, never at will. This poem is called A Woman Remembers Water. And the title of this poem is being a little modest about itself. This poem could as easily be called A Woman Remembers Being Water. A woman remembers coming from water. A woman remembers being a river, being what a river becomes. A woman remembers water. When the sun and moon are painted like changelings on her skin, she moves downward. She has no quarrel with stones. Children of the rimrock, they sing to her at night. And a beaver's dam is just a catch in her throat as she falls down the canyon. Rolling in her glacier bed, she speaks to the wary trout of salt and starfish and spume. Touch her, follow her down. An ocean is nothing to fear. An ocean is only darker sisters, darker bodies. And one last poem from me. This is from my latest collection called My Kindred, and in this book I claim as my kindred everything, animate, inanimate, because, as I mentioned, we all have a common ancestor. We all come from the stuff of stars. So in this poem, among my kindred are denizens of the mineral world, of course, and I figure as long as I marshal due respect, I'm allowed to speak to the mineral world. And in this poem, I speak to the stones of a riverbed. And today, with a few small changes, I will speak to the stones of Blue River's bed. And I was so moved to find out that the beautiful Blue River is named for the stones in its bed and how they somehow create with reflection the astonishing color of Blue River. This is called Entreaty, and as I say, I'm speaking right to those stones. Entreaty. Stones making Blue River's bed, I'm calling to you. Stones rolling in water's rush, do you hear me? Blue River carries its clamorous royal around and above you, lighting up every hue and gleam of your skin. Stones shifting under current's weight, who among you is my own? I've come to find out, to talk with the one of you who is my kin. No, not true, not entirely. Ancestor stone, You who have much to tell me, I'm here to listen. Listen to what you say. Give me the stories of our family fixations, our immigrations, long journeys made on the back of inching ice, wide diasporas accomplished by the thaw of loose-limbed soil. A child of gravel and riprap, daughter of your mineral tribe, I'm headed back into the grit of my beginnings, my bones ready to dissolve into rubble dust. Before I go, say it out loud. Tell me my own blue stone name. Thank you.
So it's an honor to be here. I was happy to find you in this beautiful building. Here's a poem about that big river up north. It's a garden poem and a catastrophe poem. I don't know how many of you are gardeners, but if you are, you know that gardening and catastrophe go hand in hand. It's called Carrots. I'm weeding the garden, combing through the feathery leaves of young carrots to pluck out the dandelion, bittercress, and poa annua. And I recall once again how ice dams high in the Rockies, holding back ancestral Lake Missoula, ruptured time and again, 10 to 12,000 years ago. And colossal floods ripped down the Columbia, clawed out coulees in the channeled scablands, raked shelves into the solid rock walls of the gorge, and dumped boulders as big as cars along the ridges of the foothills. I shiver, thinking of those cataclysmic torrents hurtling west and surging back up the Willamette until water pooled 400 feet deep right here where our house sits, where I'm on my knees, trembling a little, taking a deep breath, then getting back to thinning the carrots. A Nantes variety that grows long and straight in the 6-foot deep silt deposited here by the Missoula floods. Astonishing, that's what we garden. This is a poem that is in What the River Brings. It is astonishing. I hadn't read it for many years until John invited us, and it is a remarkable collection, and it is astonishing to see how many Oregon poets were represented in it. Really good stuff. So this is my contribution. This is a poem about how hard we've used our rivers. It's called Ghost River. I thought I heard them again last night, hammering the Willamette, walling it in and hooking up wires as if the river were made of plastic and iron. Through the fog of my dream came an old steamboat, dredging the floodplain for gold or wheat. Farmers, or maybe gamblers, were shoveling coal into the firebox along with Indians and wolves. In the pilot house, preachers and bankers, lawyers and swindlers platted the prairies, forests, and swamps. Struggling to wake up, I turned on a lamp, and ghosts of salmon smolts poured out. The light rattled like coins. The hammering kept on, but it wasn't in the river now. It was in my head. I went to the sink and opened the tap. clear water, spilled out, cool and fresh. It had all been a dream. The river was leaping with fish, muscled with joy. I was so pleased. I was innocent. I was still asleep. On the other hand, tap water, what a miracle.
Yeah.
You just walk over, the whole hydrologic cycle comes off your tap. It's one of the great gifts of humankind to be able to drink water from the tap. On a hot day, that first cold sip is electric. The tongue wakes up and wags its tail. Now, nose and hindbrain detected aftertaste. Chlorine, alum, and the cerebellum interjects sad history, river sewer. Another swallow, a pause to smack the lips, watch bubbles rise like thoughts and burst. Now comes affluence, rhythmically gulping down the entire glass, glottis pulsing in the tide wash, happy as a kelp. Throat constricting and releasing in continuous little orgasms. Ah, tap water, mountain snow, river, ocean, sky, and back to the heat of the day. This is self-explanatory. It's called Winter Riches. Winter Riches. Early autumn rains blustered in this week, and some friends are already grumbling. The oncoming darkness looms before them like a sentence. They're getting pretty depressed. It's true that Cascadia is famous for long, dreary winters, but the odd person flourishes. As quick as the rivers rise, steelheaders pour out before dawn to cast their lines onto fish-haunted waters. Mushroomers, armed with baskets and small knives, get all bug-eyed, scanning the duff under fir trees for king boletes and golden chanterelles. And someone with a taste for gray solitude, for the drab music of guttering rain, and a penchant for gathering words and phrases onto a blank page, may feel flush. Pretty depressed type, but writers, I know a lot of writers go, fine, the rain's here, get down to it. This doesn't have a river in it, but this is a poem that I sent in response to John's request to write poems in honor of the O'Brien Library. So I had to sneak that in. So this is a poem for the O'Brien Library, at the public library. Used to be, if you talked out loud, a tight-lipped librarian would shush you. Remember that? And I loved that obligatory silence, the insistence that in this secular temple of books, reading and thinking take precedence over speaking. This afternoon, however, it's library chaos. A clutch of chattering kids and parents jostles past me towards story time. Then I overhear two teenagers arguing about manga in the graphic novels section. And now a rank-smelling, straggle-haired young man draped in a sleeping bag asks me loudly where the computers are. So, yes, I prefer that semi-reverent hush. But I have to say this unfettered hubbub is more generous, more inclusive. Plus, there's still that hidden nook, a study carrel farthest from the circulation desk, where there's always somebody immersed in a book emanating that palpable silence every library holds at its core. Thank you to Connie and all the library folk. Libraries have changed so much and been asked to do so much for our communities, and it's a place of refuge. Always has been, now more than ever. I'm going to try this out on you. This is a little prose poem about an insect, which you have, you've seen. They're midges, they're tiny. You probably swallowed some over the years, or walked or ridden your bike through swarms that are just slapping on your faces, and certainly they cover our windshields. Hard to see, but on this occasion, and a few times in my life, I've seen them backlit in a swarm, and they dance up and down in this very stately dance. I can see some of you nodding. I'm so happy you've seen that. It's a mesmerizing approach, and so this is a poem about and for them. It's called River Midges. That's what I'd do if I were one of them. Glide up and down like that in a tight column with 100 of my kin, cruising intently beside the river as if there were no tomorrow. All of us small and drab, no social climbers among us, no bosses or peons, just an unremarkable middle-class family of insects out for a late summer evening swarm. From time to time, one of the midges leaves the dance, veers away, course over the water. I've done that. Flown away and come back, sadder, maybe wiser. And now 2 midges grope in mid-flight, a quick insemination, and I shiver in sympathy. Yes, nothing better of a summer's evening than being a midge. If anyone questions your worth, tell them, hey, I wasn't born yesterday. Indeed, I was born this very morning. Look around. Every moment is an eternity. Give no thought for the morrow, for there shall be none. Would you like to be a midge? I want to show you this book. I hope some of you know this, and I'm going to donate this copy to the library so you can check it out. The Cascadia Field Guide. Have any of you come across it? Has got one. Paul has got one. This is a field guide to the Pacific Northwest, but it's different. Every species, plant and animal species listed, someone wrote a poem for it. And then the natural history parts are very personal and treating them all as kin and invoking a lot of their history in place. And the artwork is stunning. So it's a terrific book. And now the library will have a copy. And this is my contribution to it. I was asked to write about the Sitka willow, Salix sitchensis. So this is my poem from the Cascadia Field Guide called Bellies Full of Sand. They'll thwack you in the face and thicket your path. But I've always admired willows, stitching riverbanks together, straining floodwaters, leaning lithely out over the current. Until one summer beside the Willamette, while my small son waded in an eddy, I noticed a young gravel bar just risen up out of the water, and the willows were on it already, like vultures on a carcass, snaking their roots into the sand, sucking minerals from the cobbles. Hey, we've got to go, I told my son. He shook his head, waded deeper. I tugged him out of the water and carried him unhappily home. Because I'd underimagined willows, so brilliantly ambitious, colonizing every fresh island, voraciously filling their bellies, propelled by the urge to turn sand into leaves, enamored of the sun, indifferent to us. Those are a little scary. My final poem. Cup and I live on Crystal Lake Drive in Corvallis. It's the street nearest the river, and so we can do a 2-mile walk down along the river, which we do 4 or 5 times a week. And this tells the story of how it came to be named Crystal Lake Drive. That's the title, Crystal Lake. On my daily walk, I like to stop by this dying lake, to sit on my favorite rotten log and just breathe. Just listen to the birds and feel the breeze on the skin of my cheeks. For a brief moment, I'm one with this willow-fringed crescent of stagnant, algae-filled scumwater. Then I rouse myself, consider how Crystal Lake, this shallow old river channel cut off decades ago from the rip-wrapped Willamette, must have been named by some long-dead real estate broker. Pasted a bright, clear name on this polluted, putrefying little oxbow in the great American tradition of geographical lies, fantasies, and boosters. The willows and snowberry bushes are trying their best, but it's not a pretty place. There's a tattered blue tarp and some cast-off clothing scattered under a copse of ash trees. A rusted oil drum half buried in the mud that could be a prop for a post-apocalypse movie. On the steep slope across from me, the old riverbank, there's a slab of granite with a name and dates eroded to shadows. It's a broken headstone pitched down from the cemetery on the bluff above, which is where I'm headed next. Past the end of the lake, up the bluff, through the cemetery, and back along my street, Crystal Lake Drive, on my way home. Thank you.
What the river brings. What it brings us today. I'm going to start out with a poem from this wonderful anthology by Eric Muller, someone I know some of us knew very well. Eric's poem is called To Tell You. Here is a man lazy about knowledge who can name only a star or two. Here is a man pawing through riverside pebbles, thinking he knows what he wants, but won't know until he finds it. Here is a man who places in your hand a single black lacquered pebble, bright as a star. A man who does not know what kind of stone it is or what he means to tell you.
That's so weird.
Eric's poem embodies what I consider one of the paradoxes of language. Language speaking the unspeakable, language conveying the ineffable, which is the work of poetry, the poem's sacred work, the work of that black lacquered pebble, bright as a star. Eric's poem is a lacquered pebble, bright as a star. And one of the things I love about the poem is the fact that the poem says it can't, he does in the poem what he says he can't do. He says, or this voice speaker says, a man who does not know what kind of stone it is, that's fair enough, or what he means to tell you. But he's just told us. Wonderful, wonderful poem. This is a poem by someone you do know, John Whitty. And John's poem is entitled, When You Come to Lethe. So Lethe is one of the rivers that separates the Greek underworld from the world above. And Lethe is the river of forgetfulness. According to Edith Hamilton, and she's a pretty good source, according to Edith Hamilton, souls on their way out of the underworld, on their way to live in the world above, all had to drink from it, from that river of forgetfulness. Those yet to be born waited by the river for their time to drink and lose the memory of what in their former lives they had done and suffered. Lethe, the river of forgetfulness. When you come to Lethe, the sulks and slumps, the gray areas, you will put them behind you. The off days, the eyesores, the vast turgid sea, let them go. The oddments and omens, the stammering, the wraiths and larvae. What are these? The slops and sludgy waste stream? You will allow these memories to lapse. The radiance, the broken phrase, the smidgens, the fugitive, minutes. Drink now and forget. John's poem is a catalog. His poem is a deeply affecting, richly musical catalog. A catalog of what we humans might bring to this river of forgetfulness, what we might be prepared to let go, to give up, to give over there. Note the list of what's being relinquished: sulks, slumps, gray areas, off days, eyesores, turgid sea, oddments, omens, stammering, wraiths, larvae, slops, sludgy waste stream. All dark, some very dark, but then near the end of John's poem, in that line's center, the radiance, the radiance. To give up memory is to relinquish radiance too. A wonderful, wonderful take on the mystery of that fabled Greek river of forgetfulness. Thank you for that, John. Beautiful thing. So, the darkness of rivers, the overwhelming power that a river holds, power sometimes held in abeyance, a power sometimes unleashed. In her poem, Finding I Had Not Written About the River, Amy King gives us a stunningly prescient poem. Now, this anthology was published in 2012, but Amy's poem, the poem I'm going to read for you here in a few seconds, could have been written a week ago in response to the horror created by the flooding in Texas. Could. Easily. Finding I had not written about the river, it turned on me. Its rolling hands beat my bloodied pen, broke the legs off every tree. It told me not to ever think it was my torpid lapdog stream. It snapped the sun in half. Somewhere in the brown-green swell, I saw an arm go by. Smashed paddle, a hat. A heron rose on wires and pushed the land away. The river washed the summer off its hands. Wow. And if we were ever to be so foolish as to think of a river as a torpid lapdog stream, that would be our mistake. Goodness. Again, a certain darkness in rivers. In Cecilia Hagen's The Crooked Path, that's her, or maybe she has more than one poem in here, but it's one of her poems anyway in this anthology, The Crooked Path. Cecilia gives us a poem about a river whose name, as she says, a river whose name is unsayable. A river with an unsayable name. Here in her poem, the river is metaphor for an irresistible force, an irresistible desire, an irresistible, dangerous temptation. The Crooked Path. I wanted him bad on the bike path, the river carving out his silhouette, my heart a troubled trout between the muddy banks of what I should and shouldn't do. The wind was a cheap perfume that made everything seem possible. I reneged on past promises. I vowed to be better later in my life. I knew the slippery lushness would turn sour, new losses would accrue, but what could I do? I rejected the naysayer. I embraced the river whose name is unsayable, sided with the luster of cottonwoods whose leaves wheel this way and that, whims made manifest and golden. To flit, to shimmer, to leap is divine. Come this way, he said, and the crooked path was well trodden and welcoming. Deb Casey's poem in this anthology is called Out Again. Deb's poem takes us to a river, the Willamette River, whose current, whose onrushing is the unstoppable, constant motion, that unending movement of time, time itself. The growing up of children, the departure of a youngest child to places far away. The poem collects what it calls the threads of current, the threads of current. The speaker, with her friend Kate, go to the edge of the river to draw and color what they see, while memory, sensation, wonderment weave their threads into the speaker's thoughts. Out again. Out again with Kate. Along the Willamette, South Bank, jostling priorities, family, art, sun, shade, shifting for position, not knowing I've claimed the place George, the dog, calls his own. Drooly lab who comes to press his damned, damp, grimy tennis ball into my spine. Human limbs extend above the bushes. Someone rustles a presence, maybe staking a claim. We draw, Kate and I, what we don't see, coloring what we do. Distractions, worse, better than the traffic, shift attention, affect the light cast on my careful selection. Kate's oblivious. What naked guy? The current moving past us won't be caught. My green, too green. Age 16, my youngest packs her bags. She's off across how many bodies of water between us and next time? What? Try again for a broader, cleaner, safer space or perspective. Maybe more or less color and contrast. Today, a wadded bed wrap flaps limp against the river's pulse. Threads of current gather. Broad pleats, bright pinches, suspended desire. Might I trade pen for needle, sew, or sing? Grass blade taut between my thumbs to saw a shrill prayer. Oh, dear, dear doves and grubs, my loves, go, I say, go now. May you be among those you can trust. Deb's river poem ends with a wonderful benediction. May you be among those you can trust. Lovely. William Stafford's poem in here, one of them, Climbing the River, is in the meditation section of this anthology. Climbing along the river. Willows never forget how it feels to be young. Do you remember where you came from? Gravel remembers. Even the upper end of the river believes in the ocean. Exactly at midnight yesterday sighs away. What I believe is all animals have one soul. Over the land they love, they crisscross forever. Bill Stafford. Bill's poem is a listing poem, a marvelous Staffordian list. I don't know if you would call them stanzas, they're just like notes, one after another. I love this one best of all. Even the upper end of the river believes in the ocean. And of course I think of an ocean is nothing to fear. An ocean is only darker sisters, darker bodies. All these poems, all this river music, river magic, all this that we have to hold, to sing, to read, to hear. Thank you, Catherine Bridle, for giving us this collection of Oregon River poems. Thank you, supporters of the O'Brien Memorial Blue River Library, for creating the way for this library to rise again from its ashes. Thank you, John Whitty, for organizing and hosting this gathering, for engineering the way of a second printing of this anthology to happen. Thank you for inviting Charles and me to read river poems today. And my gratitude to everyone here for this occasion of great celebration. Thank you.
Great reader of poems. I'm just going to read maybe half a dozen more poems from it. This is such a terrific anthology. This is a poem by Ingrid Wendt, a great Eugene poet. There's a lot of things in here that are kind of evocations of youthful connections to the river, complicated by later understanding of maturing maybe. This one is such a poem. It's called Columbus and Me. Do you remember the first time you came to Oregon? Some of you were born here, but boy, those of us who moved from elsewhere, it's like, wow, this is pretty special. Coming fresh to this Oregon soil, the greatest thing was to hike far from any human demand and to sit looking over land empty of human influence, far as the eye could see. Horse Lake, catching the first rays of sun, brushing between the three sisters, ridge after rolling green ridge misted in silence. Or to camp at a bend in some river, large and level enough for a tent. The simpler, we said, the better. Our red nylon parachute roped under some branch overhead and staked like a giant columbine wide to the ground. 24, and an ocean away from my Illinois home. More than 20 years away from tonight, learning at last the names Calapooya, Chinook, Takelma, rethinking counties, Clackamas, Tillamook, Clatsawalla. How easy it was to sail, certain as morning, into a landscape no one human could ever have witnessed before. Not this rock, that riffle, not this bird song leading us on. Such bounty falling into our hands. Lovely irony. We need to grow up as the longer we stay here and recognize the depth of inhabitation of this place. Another take on it by a wonderful poet from Yamhill County, Barbara Drake. Up in the mountains. Up in the mountains, rivers are little pets. I know. I went once along the summit trail of the Cascades from Timothy Lake south. Even the lakes there were small shaving mirrors, silver spoons, icy and delicate as snowdrops. I saw the Breitenbush River where it poured no larger than rain from the downspout of my own house. The Clackamas was a ribbon of clear water I could step across. So many rivers, and each just a thread of silver slipping through deep moss. We did our balancing act as if we too were very young on that road, which was no road, along the summit, a tightrope strung between Clackamas Meadows and the Santee Anne. When we came down, I was unwary. Rivers which had been tame and small grew full and dangerous beside me. But I went in a dream, like a maiden aunt who remembers only the pretty infant at the christening and doesn't recognize the deep and dangerous giant he's become. Here are two poems about our callous treatment of rivers. This one is by Vince Wixon, Ashland, and this must be a river from his earlier life in the Midwest or Plains. You'll recognize some things that don't quite fit with Oregon, so I expect that's where it's from. This is called Flood Town. That town along the river, the one with the slaughterhouse on the floodplain, where every 30 years carcasses and rubber boots float along the loading dock and eddy and flotsam in sewage, while sides of beef hang inside on hooks tracking above the muck. Workers slide open the metal doors so the water can head where it had in mind from the beginning. Every time the levee is rebuilt, the city fathers say as the water rises, "She'll hold this time. The boulders, concrete, that rebar, we did it right this time." But water can wait. The snow piling up in the mountains, then rain, high and low, long and warm. At the Friendly Tavern, workers take a break from sandbagging, hauling dogs into motorboats, hustling sump pumps for the bowling alley, and sit on the stools, their feet up, and drink bottled beer. Peanut shells seek the main channel. Empty pop cases nose the bar railing. The drinkers compare earthquakes, landslides, tornadoes, and floods. They've never seen anything like this one, and they'll say the same next time. It was I had some sad feelings as reading through this too. There's many of these wonderful poets were gone, and there was an elegiac feel to it. But get it fast because the rest of us are going. This one by my great friend Clem Stark. This is a different way of approaching the bridge. This is Willamette Bridge, Marion Street Bridge, Willamette River, Marion Street Bridge, Pier 5, general details. So those are architectural, that's an architectural title from the blueprints. The sun slams into us like one of the pile drivers down on the gravel bar. The crew I'm on is erecting forms for concrete piers. Machinery roars, earth shudders. Cottonwood leaves turn gray with dust. Companions of duty, is this our assignment? Simply to be here, packed in these heavy bodies, dumbfounded, while time drags on and the river slides quietly by. I signal the sun to slack off a little, but nothing happens. I keep signaling anyway.
Oh, Clem.
Oh, no. You would drive across the Marion Street Bridge in Salem. Think of Clem helping build that bridge. I'm going to read two more poems. This is by Donna Henderson, who a former Portland poet, now lives in Redmond area. I love this poem because it defines a phenomenon, a river phenomenon that I had seen, but didn't know Fisher people had a name for. So this will tell you what it, this will define it for you. It's called the eddy fence. The eddy fence. On the river one day, love, you showed me an eddy fence. See where some current slides left into the backwater? How it slows and pools while the rest keeps on rushing? As though the water divided and stayed still whole. One water, two ways. The fence, its shift and glue. Itself nothing. The water, 100% of it. Backing or flowing, nothing left for the fence. Yet there the fence was, non-existent in spite of this. And where you find one, you fish it. You showed me then. See all the matter that catches there? And I saw insect shells, seed cases, twigs and some clots of foam, dust in a rusty scum. Fragile steeples of mayflies' wings, transparent in sunlight. All these bits of the living and fallen dead, matted lightly together there, felting a rind, a seam. Locating the fence and adorning it, yet not of themselves the fence. Saw a trout sipping, passing with ease between regions of swirl and flow, which the eddy fence was. Not a dwelling, I saw a way. Process, not object. And finally, another wonderful Oregon poet that we dearly, dearly miss, Peter Sears. This is to carry us out with fortitude. My time may come anytime. I'm feeling a little flimsy this morning. Maybe the nurses shouldn't have let me out for a walk. I need to look down. That's no fun. I'm an old shack that stays up by leaning into itself. That's no fun either. But I like to walk this path and watch the sunlight flicker on the water. I stop. The sunlight goes still on the water. Keep going, you goat. If you stop to rest, you'll doze off and get cold. My time could come anytime. I talk with my friends about this. I like what they say about your time coming. There's a train, they say, and if it stops for you, then you have to board. Here's what they say about baggage. You may carry a bag, but you can't have anything in it. The bag is not for looks. The bag is to hold on to. Hold on to your bags. Take some money out of it and buy some copies of this gorgeous. John, you have some final words? Or?
No, just to invite, if anything occurred to you that you want further explored, or a story you want to share, your own
Oh,
feelings
share
about
some
it.
stories with us.
Yeah.
Please.
We're visiting your river. We want to hear about your river.
Yeah, I'm struck hearing all these river poems, what the river represents. I mean, it represents finally so much, all
Right.
life and time passing, and even from a kind of conceptual point of view, language itself,
Yes.
and the way our minds assemble words and thoughts, and it's all this progressive flow. It's moving forward, and then we're all being swept along.
Right, and that great circularity because the river and it goes to the ocean and
Yeah,
there's
it's back.
clouds and rain
Yeah.
and stream, river, yeah.
Yeah, don't be afraid of the ocean. I'm not sure.
Easy for you.
Well, you know, yeah.
But I get what you
Yeah.
mean.
That may sound convincing, but you probably should give it more than just one thought, right?
I have a question. So, I think both of you maybe mentioned how sometimes poems enable the effort, at least, to put some inexpressible things into words. And I think, so I'm curious how your experience is with that you are inspired to keep trying because of the challenge, and that you might sometime be able to say something you thought you couldn't, or what inspires you to do these things?
Wow, that went just gave us a wonderful
She did.
statement.
Yeah, she did.
Because I think as working writers, and I say that people who know we're writing quite a bit, you give yourself over to this wonderful flow, this process, and it's most gratifying to me when I have no idea where it's going to take me. And every once in a while it does take me somewhere and then leave me with something that is, looks like it's going to work as a poem, but not always, but I'm always grateful for the process. And I love what you said when you first started talking about the poem being able to speak the unspeakable, say the unsayable. Rumi, are there any Rumi fans here? Oh yeah, Rumi. He just delights me because one of his frequent themes is that in his poems he's talking about what language can't do, it's just unsayable, and he's done it. And I just love that paradox to be, and Eric Muller's poem in the anthology, for me, does much the same.
I think many of those poems that we read, you see that happening with the poet, they're following it for rather long, and all of a sudden, and you got a surprise, and probably they were surprised themselves, so that's a precious moment. You got to acclimate yourself to having lots of days when it's just, We're waiting for that. Oh, thank you.
So it's a combination of discipline and
Yes.
inspiration, like you said, keeping
Yes,
up.
yeah,
That's a
Keep
very,
on it every day.
good point.
That's a very-
Sounds like a practitioner.
Richard Hugo, the poet, was a fisher. He was a mad, crazy fisher. And he said, in response to a student asking for advice, he said, keep your line in the water. Don't just frantically keep
Sure.
And Bill Stafford, William Stafford, used to frequently admonish people that they needed to lower their standards. And what he was saying is if you have a very articulate and firm critic in your mind, and you start writing a critic, say, oh, no, that's not. You can't listen to that. You have to keep writing and just be in that process and hope that it will give you something, but not be too self-critical. One time he came to I was a public high school teacher in Klamath Falls, Oregon, and then Weston, Oregon later. But to my Klamath Falls class, and one of the students asked him, Mr. Stafford, my kids were being very polite and they were under the good spirit. Mr. Stafford, what do you do about writer's block? And he kind of paused and he said, well, I don't know if I know what you mean. And the kid was kind of a little bit ticked off because, what is this famous writer who does? Well, you try to write and you can't. You have writer's block. It's like, why do I have to define writer's block? And Bill Stafford said, well, he said, I'll tell you. He said, it's kind of like piloting a light airplane. He said, if you bring its nose up too high, it'll stall out. You need to just lower your standards and keep going. And that's really a wonderful way of him to explain to that room full of teenagers, and there were some teachers in there too, about what he meant when he said lower your standards.
Yeah. I heard Bill say something even simpler, he said, in response to the same question, he said, it's like being hungry. He said, if you can't write, it's like, I'm not hungry. You'll get hungry again, just be patient.
Oh, that's good.
You mentioned the ocean being darker, and I think I know what you mean, but can you tell me what you mean about that? Some people think of darkness as evil, and I don't think that's what you're talking about.
Well, in the ocean is only darker sisters, darker bodies.
Yeah, exactly.
I think in that poem I was using darkness to express immensity and depth, and literally the ocean in many places is deep enough that light doesn't even reach it, but it is still this massive, wonderful, or each ocean is such a massive, wonderful live creature. So I wasn't necessarily calling forth anything evil, but the mystery of darkness and that kind of thing.
Is there resurrection as well? Death and resurrection.
Yeah.
Whole cycle.
Because in the end, it's nurturing. The river and the ocean are nurturing, but we gotta respect them. I heard that in some of the poetry too, like they like kind of flood. And all that. Yeah, thank you.
I just when you were talking, flashed through my mind an image of like looking at a creek or a stream where you can see easily to the bottom. You see all the water and what's in the stream bed, or it's all very clear and very visible. But that very water that you're looking at has been and will be ocean. So it carries with it every bit of darkness, every bit of light, every bit of gift.
My aunt was Sandy, and this is in northern Washington, and on the Cabo Indian Reservation, and they scattered her ashes in the San Joel River, and then it would go into the Columbia, and then it would go into the ocean. And my uncle said, and I'll never forget this, Margie, don't get too far ahead of me. I'll see you in the ocean.
Oh,
No,
That's
I always thought that was amazing.
that is amazing, that's beautiful.
And I always think
Don't go
water
too
is
far.
fantastic.
Wow, that's love, thank you. That's wonderful.
Well, there's also this, to me, completely mind-boggling fact that our water is ancient. This is the same
Yes.
water that has been circulating from the beginning of time. Right?
Is that not
Huh?
astonishing?
Yeah.
Right.
It is. And made somehow from the stuff of stars.
Yeah.
Aren't we lucky to be alive and to be, and
Amen.
especially to be here in this beautiful state?
Yeah, and not to turn from the mythological to the factual, but do you recall how much of the water on Earth is fresh water?
4%.
I heard 3, but right, 3 or 4%.
Wow.
3 or 4%, half of that frozen in the ice caps.
Oh, my goodness.
So rivers, lakes, all fresh water, 1.5%.
Oh,
So
Clouds of fish.
I wonder if they're counted in there. You have to ask. But
And I love what a lot of people, in the name that a lot of people have in the South for fresh water. They call it sweet water, salt water and sweet water. And fresh is a perfectly good word, I don't mean it that way, but the first time I heard that, I thought, oh, those people know what they're doing. Salt water, sweet water.
Well, thank
Well,
you.
and there's food outside.
There will be.
Let's do it.